So picture this. You are stranded in just this absolute freezing Montana blizzard.
Oh, brutal.
Right, you're hiding in a literal cave, just trying to keep your body temperature from, plummeting into hypothermia. And on top of all that, you are currently being hunted by absolutely every federal agency in the United States.
Like the ultimate worst-case scenario.
Exactly. Because you have almost entirely on your own orchestrated the theft of somewhere between $30 and $70 billion.
Staggering amount of money.
Yeah, of highly classified CIA funds. And your only ally in the entire world, right at this exact moment, is a stray, shivering boxer dog you literally just met.
It is the absolute definition of a high-stakes scenario.
Mm.
I mean, when you strip away all the resources, the money, the technology, what do you actually have left? You have the raw psychology of a survivor.
And that is exactly what we are tearing into today for this deep dive. We're looking at the character of Robert Conway, who operates under the alias of the Scorpion. And this is detailed in some just incredibly tense chapters of the Scorpion's sting. Our mission here isn't to just, recap a spy thriller.
No, we're going way deeper than that.
Yeah, we are conducting a behavioral analysis. We're going to deconstruct his core motivations, his physical survival tactics, and most importantly, the specific psychological pressure and manipulation tricks he uses to basically control his targets.
Because Conway is a masterclass in social engineering.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't just survive. He exploits the human landscape around him.
Yeah.
And by understanding how he intimidates and how he seamlessly deflects authority, you can actually learn to recognize these very same tactics when they're deployed in the real world.
Which is so applicable to everyday life.
Completely. The mechanisms of manipulation, they just don't change, whether you are a fugitive in a blizzard or, a corporate negotiator in a boardroom.
So let's set the baseline here. Conway is a fugitive. He's surviving this brutal winter storm after a helicopter crash, trying to evade this massive, coordinated federal manhunt. He's armed with a Glock pistol, a handful of stolen IDs, some military meals, and just this incredibly calculating mind. But before we get into how he actually survives, I really want to understand what makes a person capable of stealing billions of dollars from the intelligence community in the first place. How do you even get there?
Well, you have to look at the foundation of his worldview. It's built entirely on this concept of profound, shattering betrayal.
Okay.
So Conway served 20 years in federal prison for money laundering, tax evasion, and firearms violations.
Mm.
But he didn't just passively serve his time.
He was busy.
Oh, very. He faked mental incompetence to try and get a new trial.
Wow.
And when that didn't work, he straight up bribed a judge to secure his release.
Mm-hmm.
And the craziest part, while he was still physically locked inside that federal cage, he stole billions from the CIA's bank accounts, just laundering it through like a dozen offshore banks.
The audacity to steal from the intelligence community while you're literally already in their custody is just wild.
It is.
But what drives that? I mean, greed alone doesn't usually fuel that level of complex, high-risk behavior over a period of decades, right?
No, definitely not. It's a deeply ingrained, almost pathological sense of betrayal. Basically, he was sold down the river by his own wife.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, which left him fundamentally unable to ever love or trust a woman again. And he explicitly mirrors that personal betrayal with a systemic betrayal by the government. He just lumps them together.
Like they're the same thing.
Exactly. In his mind, women and federal agents both lied to put him in prison.
So he cultivates this intense, burning hatred for the systems tracking him, the NSA, the CIA, the Federal Reserve. And I want to be super clear here for a second. We are just analyzing Conway's stated motivations to understand his psychology. We aren't taking sides or endorsing this view. But his worldview is that these government entities are profoundly, irredeemably corrupt.
Right. Conway justifies his theft through a very specific economic and political lens. He believes these agencies actually collude with the Federal Reserve to create trillions of digital dollars out of thin air.
And he claims this is to fund unacknowledged special access programs.
Yes.
Hold on, let's actually explain that for a second, because he throws around the term quantitative easing a lot in the text to justify what he's doing.
No.
What is the actual mechanism he's talking about here?
Okay, so quantitative easing, at its core, is a monetary policy. It's where a central bank, like the Federal Reserve, purchases predetermined amounts of government bonds or other financial assets.
Okay.
And they do this in order to inject money into the economy and expand economic activity. It's essentially adding new money to the financial system.
Got it.
But Conway looks at this mechanism and sees a blank check for the intelligence community. He believes this newly created, basically untraceable liquidity is being siphoned off into black budget operations.
Black budget meaning like covert military or intelligence operations that are just not publicly acknowledged by the government or transparently funded by Congress.
Precisely. Conway accuses them of using this invisible money to start wars, fund proxy groups, and destroy lives without any oversight whatsoever. So he uses this ideological framework to build a moral shield around his own actions. In his mind, he isn't a thief. He's starving a corrupt beast. He's taking away the resources they use to commit atrocities.
It's fascinating because when you believe the entire system is built on lies and that the people closest to you will inevitably betray you, you develop a very specific defense mechanism.
They really do.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. Conway operates exactly like a zero-trust cybersecurity network.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Thanks.
Yeah.
In IT, a zero-trust architecture assumes that every single node, every device, every user on a network is compromised by default. You never trust, you always verify.
Right, trust nothing.
Exactly. Conway applies this to human beings. He assumes every human node is a threat.
Which is exactly what makes the exceptions to his rule so incredibly fascinating, because there are two of them.
Just two.
Yeah. The first is a 21-year-old woman named Seducia Paul Lenny.
Now, Conway is in his early 40s, so there's a pretty significant age gap there, but their bond seems rooted in something much darker than just a typical friendship.
Dark is an understatement. Seducia's backstory is horrific. She was abandoned on hospital steps the literal day she was born, and then adopted by a madam who named her Seducia, specifically to groom her for the child prostitution trade.
Just awful.
It is. She ran away at age 12, was taken in by a decent family, and computers basically became her refuge. She turned into this highly skilled, obsessed hacker.
And Conway became her only face-to-face friend because he bribed a judge to save her from a 30-year prison sentence.
Yeah, after she hacked a government surveillance satellite.
Yeah.
He quite literally bought her freedom.
So they share this bond forged in the fires of mutual trauma.
Exactly. Seducia loves him. And while Conway internally knows he can never love a woman again, he completely trusts her.
Why her, though?
Because she is completely outside the system. She fights the system. She was discarded by society at birth. She is a verified, uncompromised node on his network, to use your analogy.
I love that. And the second exception brings us right back to that freezing cave in Montana. He wakes up, and there's a stray, fawn-colored boxer dog, no collar, clearly abandoned.
And Conway recognizes the kinship instantly. I mean, he sees an animal that has been betrayed by its previous owner. Just like he was betrayed, he commits to the dog immediately, deciding they live or die together right then and there.
So his only two allies in the entire world are a traumatized hacker and a stray dog, because they have zero allegiance to the authority he despises.
Correct.
And this absolute lack of trust dictates everything about how he survives the immediate physical threats closing in on him, because when you assume everything is a threat, you operate with a hypervigilance that honestly borders on paranoia.
It really does. Let's look at the mechanics of his survival in that cave. He knows wild animals usually avoid humans, but a starving mountain lion in a blizzard, that's a different story.
At desperate times.
Exactly. So when a shape appears in the brush, Conway doesn't panic. He relies on elemental physics and biology. He deliberately positions his small campfire perfectly between himself and the cave opening.
Because a wild animal won't cross open flames.
Right. It forces the predator to physically detour around the fire to get to him. And he does this specifically to buy himself an extra second or two.
Why is 1 second so critical in that moment?
Because Conway is armed with a Glock pistol. Stopping a charging couple hundred-pound mountain lion with a handgun is incredibly difficult. You can't just shoot it in the body. The adrenaline and momentum will carry it right into you.
Oh, wow. So even if you hit it, it still takes you down.
Exactly. The only way to stop it instantly is to completely shut down its central nervous system with a precision headshot. That detour around the fire gives him the microscopic window of time to track the animal and take that shot.
But the crazy thing is, he doesn't even want to shoot. He has his gun in his right hand, sure, but he grabs a burning limb from the fire with his left. He's prepared to shove a burning stick into the lion's face and only shoot as an absolute last resort.
This is where you really see his situational awareness operating on multiple planes.
Yeah.
He is facing an immediate biological threat, the lion, but he is prioritizing the macro threat, the federal manhunt.
Right, because of the acoustics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A gunshot in a snowy, mountainous environment echoes for miles. The cold, dense air can actually cause sound waves to travel further and clearer.
That makes sense.
Plus, he knows the feds likely have acoustic surveillance tech deployed in the area to triangulate sounds. If he pulls that trigger, he gives away his exact coordinates. He is literally willing to risk a physical mauling to avoid making a sound that the system could hear.
That is intense discipline. Thankfully, the shape in the brush turns out to be the dog, not a lion. But even his interaction with the dog is steeped in this, calculated negotiation of trust. He cuts a piece of canvas to act as a clean plate for the dog, dumps a military ration of beef stew on it, and just steps back.
And the dog plays the exact same game. The dog refuses to eat while Conway is watching. It waits until Conway falls asleep, eats the stew, and then moves to the far wall by morning so it doesn't look, easy to get.
It's behavioral mirroring. It's two survivors with massive trust issues negotiating a truce. I mean, it takes another full day offering half a sausage and egg biscuit for the dog to finally take food directly from Conway's hand.
That patience is key to Conway's methodology. He doesn't force things. He manipulates the environment until the target comes to him. And we see this scale up dramatically when he finally leaves the cave.
Because Seducia hacks the police frequencies and lets him know the local manhunt has been pulled back so the feds can handle it exclusively.
Right, so he knows he needs to move.
And this is the part that genuinely had me pausing. He opens his bag, pulls out a rubber mask with long gray hair, puts it on, and then deliberately breaks off a 30-inch tree branch and hoists it onto his shoulder. He's dressing up for overhead surveillance.
He is hacking the optical algorithms of the drones he knows are circling above the cloud cover.
Okay, I have to ask you this. Is this actually brilliant tactical tradecraft, or is this just the paranoid over-preparation of a desperate guy who has been isolated in a cave for too long? I mean, a stick acting as a shotgun against a drone miles in the sky.
I know it sounds absurd, but it makes perfect sense when you understand how drone surveillance systems actually process visual data.
Okay, lay it on me.
Military and intelligence drones don't just stream raw video to a guy staring at a screen anymore. They use highly advanced algorithmic targeting.
Oh, like AI pattern recognition?
Exactly. The software scans the ground for specific shapes, thermal signatures, and movement patterns. In this case, they're looking for the silhouette of a fit, 41-year-old male, moving alone, and likely armed.
So they have very specific parameters set in the system.
Yes. By adding the mask, the dog, and the branch on his shoulder, Conway fundamentally alters his geometric silhouette. To an optical sensor looking straight down, he no longer matches the algorithmic parameters of fugitive.
He matches the parameters of elderly local hunter walking his dog.
Exactly. He introduces doubt into the system. And in survival evasion, doubt buys you time, and time is really the only currency that matters.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. So in Conway's world, the line between paranoia and necessary tradecraft simply doesn't exist. He's manipulating the machine just like he manipulates humans.
And his ability to manipulate himself, his own endurance, is just as extreme. Look at what happens next. He hitches a ride in a weather-beaten pickup truck driven by this incredibly eccentric snake handler named Clem Alhauser.
Oh man, Clem. He's from the Serpentine Holiness Church of Salvation. He's got fang marks on his neck, a purple swollen arm, and missing fingers.
A very intense guy to be trapped in a truck with.
Definitely. And Conway introduces himself with the most aggressively generic alias possible, John Smith.
Of course.
And when they get two blown tires and have to wait for a tow truck, Conway sits there for 6 hours listening to snake sermons. 6 hours, while waiting for a tow truck driver who is actively pulling Conway's own bullet-riddled car out of a pond just down the road.
Which is a masterclass in the suppression of the fight-or-flight response.
How so?
Biologically, Conway's amygdala is likely screaming at him to run, right? To steal a car, to get out of the open. He is sitting on the side of a highway, highly exposed to the very people hunting him.
Just a sitting duck.
Exactly. But he overrides that biological panic with supreme cognitive control. He smiles, he nods, and he plays the role of John Smith, because he knows that breaking character is infinitely more dangerous than enduring the discomfort.
Which perfectly transitions into how he handles human obstacles when mere endurance just isn't enough. Because his true superpower is deception. When he finally gets to a little commercial strip on the highway, he needs clean clothes. He smells terrible, he's covered in mud, and there's a local cop car parked out front of the store. So he goes to the back door of a country western clothing store right in the alley.
This scene is absolutely vital. I mean, it lays out the anatomy of a con step by step.
So a young clerk opens the door, sees this filthy guy, and tries to slam it shut, saying, "We don't cater to bums."
Natural reaction.
Right. But Conway jams his boot in the door, pulls out a stolen Montana Highway Patrol badge, and claims to be an undercover cop. And from here, he orchestrates this psychological takedown that is just fascinating to read.
Well, he initiates a cognitive interrupt. The clerk is in an aggressive posture, defending the store from a transient. But Conway doesn't yell or demand compliance based on the badge. He asks a question. Can I trust you to not tell anyone?
It instantly flips the power dynamic.
It completely forces the clerk's brain to switch tracks. Instead of assessing, is this guy a threat? The clerk is suddenly defending his own trustworthiness to an authority figure.
Rule 1, always put the mark on the defensive.
Exactly.
Then Rule 2, Conway layers in the sympathy. He weaves this highly relatable story about flipping his patrol car in the blizzard while checking for stranded motorists against his captain's orders. He says he's going to lose his job and he has a wife and 3 kids to feed.
This triggers mirror neurons in the clerk. Empathy. By presenting himself not as this powerful, untouchable cop, but as a flawed, desperate father who made a noble mistake, Conway lowers the clerk's emotional defenses.
It's so smart. The badge provides the authority, but the story provides the humanity. It's an incredibly potent combination.
It works so well that the clerk actually leans in and asks, "What do you want?"
Which is Rule 3. The first tactic in a con is to get your mark to ask a question.
And that is the hook. In the psychology of persuasion, specifically Robert Cialdini's principle of commitment and consistency, once a person verbally engages and asks how they can help, they have subconsciously committed to being part of the solution.
So Conway makes a small request, just needs to use the restroom and buy some clothes. But then he goes for Rule 4, the ego stroke. He asks this young, likely minimum wage clerk, maybe you can help me think up some story to explain why I wrecked my patrol car to my captain.
Which is a massive dopamine hit for the clerk. Conway is elevating him from a retail worker to a literal consultant for law enforcement. He makes the clerk a co-conspirator.
People really crave feeling important.
Always. By asking for advice, Conway makes the clerk feel smarter and more powerful than the authority figure standing in front of him.
And then Rule 5, he seals the deal with reciprocity. He hits him with a clincher. He promises the clerk that if he ever gets in trouble with the law, Conway will help him out. The clerk immediately lets him in.
It is a frictionless victory. But what's really crucial for you, the listener, to understand here is that this sequence, disrupting the target's thought pattern, manufacturing empathy, securing a micro-commitment, inflating their ego, and offering a future reward that is the exact architecture of almost every modern social engineering attack.
You mean like phishing emails?
Absolutely. Think about it. The email creates a sudden problem to disrupt your day, claims to be from an executive in a bind who needs your help, asks if you are available, flatters you by saying you're the only one they trust to handle this discreetly.
And promises it'll reflect well on your performance review.
Yes. It completely bypasses logical security protocols by hacking human emotion.
Conway is essentially running a live-action phishing scam on this kid. It's like conversational jiu-jitsu. Instead of pushing against the clerk's resistance, he pulls the clerk off balance. It's incredibly pragmatic, but it also really highlights his sociopathy. He feels absolutely nothing for this clerk while he systematically dismantles his defenses.
The emotion is entirely simulated for tactical advantage.
Right. But this soft manipulation is only one tool in his belt. What happens when Conway encounters someone he just can't charm? Someone who represents immediate, unpredictable aggression. That takes us inside Rattler's Bar and Grill.
Oh, this scene is intense. Conway is cleaned up. He and the dog go into this bar, sitting at a table in the back, and a drunk patron named Elmer decides to pick a fight, yelling at him to get this stinking mutt out of there.
And Conway's reaction is so strange at first. He swivels around and warns Elmer to keep his voice down because the dog is sensitive to criticism.
He is testing the waters.
Yeah.
He's trying to disrupt the drunk's aggression with confusion. In military strategy, there is a concept called the ODA loop: observe, orient, decide, act. It's the cycle the brain constantly goes through in a confrontation.
Okay, so observe, orient, decide, act.
Right. Conway is trying to scramble Elmer's ability to orient himself to the situation by saying something so bizarre.
But Elmer pushes it. He gets right in Conway's face. And Conway delivers this incredibly chilling line, just perfectly calm. He says, well, now, Elmer, we got a real problem here. My dog does indeed have rabies, and I'm a psychopathic killer on steroids. It's not very smart to get in someone's face because you can't see what's coming.
That statement completely shatters Elmer's ODA loop. A normal bar fight involves posturing, puffing out the chest, exchanging insults. It follows a predictable social script.
Yeah, there's a rhythm to it.
But Conway completely abandons the script. By casually claiming to be a rabid psychopath, he forces Elmer's brain to freeze while it tries to process if it's a weird joke or a literal lethal threat.
And in that microsecond of cognitive freeze, Conway attacks. And it's not a brawl, it is a calculated biomechanical dismantling of a human being.
Let's look at the actual physiology of what he does. First, he stomps the instep of Elmer's foot. The human foot is full of delicate metatarsal bones. Crushing them instantly destroys mobility and balance.
Ouch.
Then, he shoves his fingers into Elmer's eyes, targeting the optic nerve and causing blinding pain that forces the body into an involuntary defensive posture.
Then he shatters the nose with an elbow, and finally he slaps both palms over Elmer's ears.
Which is devastating. Cupping the ears and striking them creates a massive, sudden wave of pneumatic pressure inside the ear canal. This boasts the tympanic membrane, the eardrum.
Jeez.
It destroys the inner ear's vestibular system, which controls balance and spatial orientation. It is a total sensory overload attack. Sight, hearing, balance, mobility, all neutralized in under 3 seconds.
And the dog joins in, attacking Elmer's groin, causing massive trauma. The bartender later remarks that the man's sex life is over and he needs major reconstructive surgery. Conway permanently maimed this man, and then he just calmly sits back down and orders a beer and a steak.
It is brutal, unfiltered violence.
Which brings up a massive cognitive dissonance that I really struggle with, because later, when he's talking to the NSA agent, Conway literally looks at her and says, "I hate violence and killing."
And she points out the obvious hypocrisy right away. He killed 2 federal agents in the helicopter crash, his dog just ruined a man's life in the bar, and he's lecturing her on peace.
Is he just lying, or does he actually believe he's a pacifist? Because he tells the drunk, "You can't see what's coming." That's his whole philosophy. He is an ambush predator.
I believe Conway heavily compartmentalizes his actions to preserve his self-image as the victim. He views government violence wars, drone strikes, covert ops as systemic macro violence driven by profit and power.
Okay.
But he views his own extreme violence as reactive microviolence.
Yeah.
In his mind, he never initiates. He only responds to threats.
So the agents in the chopper were hunting him, so that's defensive.
Right. And the man in the bar threatened his dog. He justifies his lethality by convincing himself he has zero agency, that the system basically forced his hand.
It's just a staggering level of psychological rationalization, and that rationalization is put to the absolute ultimate test just moments later in that exact same bar when the system finally catches up to him.
The arrival of NSA agent Mary Riley.
Yeah. The bartender warns him a woman and a rough-looking guy are asking for him. The woman walks over, drops a briefcase on his table, and just says, "Hello, Mr. Scorpion." She initiates this massive data dump. She knows everything.
It is a strategy of shock and awe through data dominance. She is trying to strip Conway of his anonymity and his psychological armor all at once.
She drops photos of the downed chopper and his bullet-riddled Mustang. She recites his real name, his age, his exact ancestry, Blackfoot Indian, German, Irish. She details his 20 years in prison, the bribed judge, everything. She even says they know more about him than his own mother.
For almost anyone else in the world, this is the moment you fold. The gig is up. The most powerful surveillance apparatus in human history has you completely cornered.
But Conway doesn't flinch.
No. He employs a brilliant counter-interrogation technique. He refuses to accept her framing of reality.
He immediately starts undermining her authority. She says her name is Mary Riley. But for the rest of the conversation, he deliberately calls her Ripley, like the character from Alien.
It's a subtle boundary violation. It tells her, your identity and your authority means so little to me that I won't even encode your name into my memory.
And when she tries to assert dominance by pointing out the gun hidden under his jacket, he deflects it by making a highly inappropriate comment about the silk blouse she's wearing and her physical appearance.
Again, he is aggressively violating professional norms. She is trying to conduct a lethal, high-stakes federal interrogation. By acting like a sleazy guy in a dive bar, he completely destabilizes the dynamic. He forces her to deal with his unpredictability rather than her evidence.
He pushes it even further, too. When she brings up Sedusha, he throws the NSA's voyeurism right back in her face. He asks if they enjoyed listening to his bedroom antics, making specific, crass references to the sounds they made.
Think about the psychology there. The government has violated his most intimate, private moments. A normal reaction is shame, anger, or feeling violated.
Sure.
But Conway weaponizes it. He mocks them for being pathetic voyeurs. He makes the federal agent feel dirty and disgusted by her own agency's surveillance tactics. He turns their omniscience into a punchline.
He literally bats away a multi-billion-dollar federal case by talking about his sex life. And when she finally pivots to the money, the 30 to 70 billion he stole, he leans back and demands she justify why the government needs the black budget in the first place, launching into his whole rant about funding terrorists.
And Riley doesn't actually deny his accusations. She just gives a pragmatic defense, saying it's an imperfect world and she can't right all the wrongs. She offers him a deal. Give back the money, and they'll call off the hit squads.
She also demands the IDs of the agents he killed. And this is where his arrogance just peaks. She tells him the dead agents were named John Law and Peter Gunn. Conway literally laughs. He mocks the CIA for having terrible fake names, suggesting they should have used Gene Autry or Crisco Sid.
He is openly insulting the intelligence of the apparatus hunting him.
Then she pulls out a scorpion calling card they found on one of the bodies. She thinks this proves they have him dead to rights. And Conway, he just pulls out another scorpion calling card from his pocket and hands it to her. He claims he found it in a strip club in Juarez. The card reads, "What is the point of a purposeless life? Avoid the sting."
He is actively leaning into his own mythos. He is telling her, you might have my biographical data, but you are still playing a game that I designed.
I kept wondering during this whole exchange, is he actually fearless or is this a massive performance? Because it reminds me of a poker player who shoves all their chips into the center of the table without even looking at their own hand. He's weaponizing irrationality, you know? He's projecting absolute dominance to terrify the rest of the table into folding.
It has to be performative to some degree, but the performance eventually becomes reality. If you refuse to recognize someone's power over you, you mentally disarm them. They rely on your compliance to project their authority. Conway just denies them that compliance entirely.
And we see the ultimate physical proof of that the second Riley leaves the table. She had warned him about her partner waiting by the door, FBI Special Agent Dwayne Kugel.
Right, Kugel is the government's attack dog. He's the brother of the FBI director known for excessive force with like a dozen lawsuits against him.
Conway gets up to use the restroom, and this massive, violent agent is blocking the door. Most people, having just been given a 72-hour ultimatum by the NSA, would keep their head down, but Conway walks right up to him and says, "Move out of the way, Moosehead."
Kugel tries to intimidate him, telling him to take the deal.
And Conway delivers the ultimate distillation of his worldview. He says, "My dog doesn't take anyone's advice, so I'd suggest you move or lose your privates." He threatens to have the dog maul the groin of a federal agent right after he literally just did it to a civilian.
And Kugel responds by pulling his gun and aiming it directly at Conway's chest, threatening to shoot him and the dog on the spot.
It's a complete stalemate. Conway refuses to be intimidated by the badge, the reputation, or the literal firearm pointed at his heart. He relies entirely on his willingness to embrace absolute chaos.
Conway's survival strategy is singular. He controls the narrative in every single interaction. Whether he's facing a suspicious clerk, a violent drunk, or a federal agent with a gun to his chest, he dictates the terms of reality. He forces them into his OODA loop.
We've covered a lot of ground today, analyzing the psychology of Robert Conway. We've seen a man driven by deep betrayal, operating on a zero-trust architecture. We've explored how he manipulates the physical environment, fire, acoustics, optical drone algorithms, and how he uses a highly structured psychological playbook to charm, confuse, or brutally dismantle the humans in his path.